So you've been sitting around in the country that my ancestors built for about 20 years. Your parents came over as immigrants, brought you over. You made millions, according to your resume, off of this country, and you have absolutely not been involved in civics. One, not voting, and two, let me just ask, because I know you mentioned earlier you don't want to sit around at the debate and talk about accomplishments. Let's make the accomplishments pretty simple. In high school, were you ever a class president or take any leadership role? Because your opponent did, Chris Christie. He was the class president. So
Yeah, I
have you
did.
ever taken any leadership at all on
I have.
anything, or just
All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. We got to take a look at one of the most ridiculous, one of the most bad faith, and one of the worst interviews I think I have ever seen in my entire life. This was terrible. Now, I know I've been gone for about 5 or 6 days. I've been busy handling some things, but I'm back and I'm ready to get into this content. Now, this video is almost reminiscent of the Andrew Tate BBC interview where you can see the bad faith intentions that the interviewer and that the interviewers have toward the guests on their show. You invite someone on your show, you think it's to actually pick their brain, have some thought-provoking questions, give them a fair shot, allow them to, speak and pitch their ideas and their platform. It's not like Vivek Ramaswamy is some type of extremist. He's actually a very well-spoken, very smart, accomplished person. So allow him to speak, allow him to say what he has to say. But this woman was constantly interrupting him. Bad faith from the jump, from the very start. But you'll see all of that as you watch. So don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe while we're watching. Now let's get into the interview.
mention, the pride of being an American, and it is to have pride in this country. I'm also a veteran, by the way, for the United States Air Force. So when is it that you voted for the first time?
I voted in 2020.
Okay, so you're how old again?
I'm 37 years old.
So for how many years you sat around and did not get involved at all in any civic engagement? Is that my understanding?
A long time is the answer. And actually, that's what I wrote this book about. I'm not holding myself out as some sort of model. I'm actually offering myself as a self-reflection of my journey as a citizen to whom this country has given much, right? As an adult, when you have kids, it changes your perspectives. I'm very honest about that. Absolutely.
Okay, no problem. So let's go deeper into the self-reflection. So you've sat around for, and sir, I'm being as respectful as I possibly can. Please don't take anything
and you don't even have to be. And you don't even
Yeah.
have to be. So take it off and let's go.
So you've been sitting around in the country that my ancestors built for about 20 years. Your parents came over as immigrants, brought you over. You made millions, according to your resume, off of this country, and you have absolutely not been involved in civics. One, not voting, and two, let me just ask, because I know you mentioned earlier.
See, so let me just stop right here. You can see it. You can see the hatred just emanating from her. She's not really asking him questions. She's telling him about himself. It's not like she's asking to understand. She doesn't like him. She doesn't like his platform. She doesn't like that he's a Republican. I don't think she likes that he's a person of color who goes against so many of the cultural and societal norms and expectations that a person of color is supposed to have. She doesn't like that. So instead of coming to this interview in good faith and actually asking him things, she's trying to tell him about himself. She said, "You've been sitting around doing nothing." She said that his parents brought him over here. He was actually born in this country. And then she also wants to mention that, he's been in the country making millions and making money off of the sacrifices that her ancestors have made, off of the back of her ancestors. Look, I'm blacker than her, at least from a skin color perspective. I'm darker than her, but I don't understand why black people love to say that black people, African slaves, black slaves built this country. We played a part in it, but we all built this country. The country that we have here today is a result of everything. It's a result of everybody's contributions, the good, the bad, the ugly, the history. That's how we have the country that we have today. It's not only because of black people. White people had to work too. Other immigrants had to work too. Like, we all built this country. I don't understand why black people like to frame it as if only black people just built the whole entire country. Yes, obviously we were instrumental. We played a part. We played a role. But everybody's contributions built this country. But let's keep it going. That's several strikes of disrespect towards Vivek Ramaswamy that I just want to mention.
You don't want to sit around at the debate and talk about accomplishments. Let's make the accomplishments pretty simple. In high school, were you ever a class president or take any leadership role? Because your opponent did, Chris Christie. He was the class president. So have you ever taken any leadership at all on anything, or just?
Can I just correct a couple factual things that are kind of important? My parents didn't bring me over to the country. I was born in this country, and I'm proud of that.
No, I know you were born here in Ohio.
Yeah.
Ohio.
You mentioned my parents.
I'm saying your parents
were
immigrants. My apologies.
And that's all right. You said your parents brought you over to this country. I
thought
I would set that record straight.
I mean, they were immigrants, but let's not go down the water hole.
No. We're not going to water hole. I just want to correct a couple facts.
Let's not go down a rabbit hole. After she disrespects him, calls him an immigrant. Said, my bad, but let's not go down the rabbit hole. He just trying to correct you. You speaking wrong on his name and his family, so he has to correct you. Man, Vivek, you'll see as the interview goes, the level of calmness and patience that he has with this woman and with this whole interview and the way they set this up, amazing.
And then the other thing is,
you were born here in Ohio.
I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. That's right.
Right. So you've been here your entire life. So the question is, did you take any leadership role in middle school, high school, class president?
I did.
I know you played tennis. What is it? Explain it to us.
Student council. But I think that this is. Yes, I have held leadership roles over my life, but those don't qualify me to do what I'm doing now.
Yeah, it kind of does. Okay, it kind of does. Well, I'm giving the test. I'm the test administrator.
All right, there you go.
So it kind of does, because when you go from saying I want to go to the highest office,
and I'll tell you, I've led companies as well. Is the other leader? Right, the main leadership role I've played is and I want to talk about one early part of your premise that I also want to say, bring it to the country point. The other point, you use the word sitting around. I'm not somebody who's saying I want the next generation, my kids' generation, to have more civic duties when they graduate from high school and college than I did when I did. That being said, I wasn't sitting around. I've developed medicines, 5 of which are FDA-approved products today, one of which is a life-saving therapy in kids, 20 of whom die by the age of 3 if they're not treated, 70% of whom now live lives of a normal duration. Another one for prostate cancer. So I don't apologize for making contributions.
But were you a student council president?
But,
right. Well, I don't want you to filibuster that because that's not the question that I asked. And I don't consider, as a veteran, I'm talking about service. I'm not talking about what you did for profit. Yeah. I'm not talking about what you paid people to do with your company.
So I've not served the country
because that means nothing to me.
You do what I'm talking. She hasn't been able to ask a question. She's been trying to ask a question, and you've been talking over her.
I'm all ears.
We gave you the platform to let you say.
I'm all ears. I'm all ears. No, I was just correcting.
Ridiculous. And then Charlamagne says, "Oh, you feeling a little defensive." See, and this is why, man. This is why I can't get behind and back a dude like I can't back Charlamagne, because he does this thing where it's like, sometimes he'll say something that makes sense, but then he'll just be, he'll just act totally ridiculous. He'll say something completely ridiculous. How can you sit up here and say that Vivek Ramaswamy is defensive? They in the room sitting there with him, and they're probably the only people watching this who said that he was defensive. This woman is rude as you know what. Super rude, extremely rude. And if she's saying something wrong about him, if somebody says something, put yourself in his shoes. If somebody says something wrong about you and then just continues to go off on a tangent, making these presumptions about you, then you have to correct them.
She hasn't had a chance to ask a question yet. Every time she tries to ask a question, you've been cutting her off. Go ahead,
I'm all ears.
Right. So my question again is, you're trying to, your goal is to raise the standard, and you're saying you want people to believe in country and you want people to have civic engagement. Yeah. And sir, I just find it very telling that you haven't had any civic engagement at all and haven't been at all. And when I say sit around, I don't mean you haven't done anything. I'm talking about in regards to service, because one thing about political office, the same way that you want to change how people look at politics and look at this country, I want to change how people look at politicians. And when I see that someone hasn't did anything at all to be of service to mankind, to take a leadership role, it's not good enough to just be on city student council. Were you a leader? All of that applies. Have you been able to get anybody in the room at any time, from a high school gymnasium to Ohio?
This makes absolutely no sense at all. She says she's concerned with service. She's concerned with leadership. She's concerned with a person who's running for president who hasn't provided any service to this country at all, when he just said that he was the lead and he took lead at companies where they developed medicines that saved plenty of people, that saved tons of people. So How is that not a service to this country? How is that not a service to humanity? How is it that being in charge of a business, being at the lead and at the forefront of a business, how are you not a leader? How are you not getting people to believe in your vision as a leader in business? Like, what is it that she's not seeing here? What is it that she's not seeing here? It's not making no sense to me.
Republican leadership there to now, have you been able to get anybody in a room to believe in this vision? I don't agree with a lot of your vision statement, but I do know you've been going around having these discussions and getting everybody emotionally worked up to talk about vision and debate. But I want to get to the practical. You're trying to go from preschool to president of the United States. You're skipping over city council, county council, mayor, governor. You want to go straight to the top. So my question is this a PR? Is this for the PR, the perception of reality, or can you point to any leadership where you've been able to get people to believe in what you're talking about that they're not paid to do on any of these vision statements that you have?
I know I'm pausing a lot, but I got to make a point about what she just said there. So she's saying that he's going from preschool to president, arguing that he hasn't taken the route of being on city council. He doesn't have the experience being on city council and being a mayor and being a governor. But that is the traditional route that all of the politicians who have us where we are at now, they've all taken that route. I don't understand why that is so important to her when, the evidence in the history shows all of these people that are politicians have been career politicians and played this game their entire life, and they're doing a terrible job at it. So she's pretty much trying to make the argument to Vivek Ramaswamy that he hasn't taken on the traditional path, the traditional trajectory that all of these politicians, these career-long politicians who've been doing this for ages and playing these games, she's making an argument that because he hasn't done that, he can't be taken serious. But that's exactly how we end up in the situation where we are now. We have career politicians like Joe Biden. Hello. We have career politicians like that who are doing a terrible job at their job. So it doesn't even make sense that she's asking for these qualifications, and I know she would probably beg to differ with this statement, but I think Donald Trump was a much better president than Joe Biden is. And what was Donald Trump? Donald Trump was a businessman. He was a leader. He had to get people to believe in his visions. He had to get people to see him as a leader so that he would be able to lead this country. And he did a pretty good job at it, a better job than the guy who we have right now. So this is a mute point that she's making. It doesn't really make any sense to me at all. She wants more career politicians. She wants more of the exact same thing.
If not, then to me, it's a mute point because you're holding a standard that you haven't met yourself.
So if you're only going to count government service, you're absolutely
no, not government
right.
Service.
Okay.
Student council in the 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th. Were you a leader? Did you do anything to rally anybody? Did you fight for better lunch? I did in the 6th grade with Miss Harris. I'm not talking about government. I can go all the way back from the 5th grade every year, sir, because people who are in service to this country, if you're going to go around saying you want people to believe in this country that I signed up to die for, then I want to make sure that you're holding that same standard. So not government, not political. Let's not get it confused. I'm saying, have you did anything of service that we can point to say he is a good leader, like Chris? And I'm not even a fan of Chris Christie, but he was the student council president in high school. So have you done anything of service besides yourself that has not benefited yourself? It's just a simple question.
So the acts of service that I have performed are small, so small that I don't even want to talk about them to boast. But yes, have I volunteered for this country? Yes, I have. I've always been interested in healthcare.
It's okay to talk about the small things.
These are small things, right? But thank you.
No, let's just mention
Bethesda North Hospital.
So it's really a no?
No, it's not a no. It's just something I don't like boasting about. I volunteered.
We're not boasting. It's an interview. You're boasting on your vision and everything else. I think you boasted on the millions of dollars that you made. So let's just throw it out. So in 6th grade, I'll give you an example. I'll help you out. In 6th grade, Miss Harris was let me give you an example because maybe you're confused. In the 6th grade, Miss Harris was snatching papers from everybody in the classroom. So me as a 10-year-old, I went to the principal and said, I'm tired of Miss Harris snatching papers, and I'll organize the students around getting Miss Harris to stop snatching papers. Now,
how in the world, and on what green earth is that important in regards to becoming a president? on what green earth does that even matter? And then she's contradicting herself. She says, no, I'm not talking. She says, no, I'm student council. That's not important. Then she went on to name these government roles, city council and mayor and governor. Then she backtracks and says, I'm not talking about government. Have you been, on the student council? So she's just going back and forth. And this student council argument, it has to be the dumbest thing I have ever heard. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. What you did in 8th grade, you gathered students to protest a teacher snatching papers. Okay, big deal. That's not gonna make anyone believe in your vision as a president. Who cares? That is so irrelevant. That's 8th grade. That's 6th grade. You're adults now. She cannot make the claim that he hasn't done enough service to this country, that he hasn't gathered and rallied people as a leader when he is literally leading, businesses. He's a businessman, so he has done exactly what she's asking for. But for some reason, she keeps bringing up being a student council president and rallying students to protest their teacher snatching papers, bro. Ridiculous.
There was a consequence for that. I got suspended for 5 days for talking back, and I got in trouble. I got a spanking, and I was on punishment for months and months. But that is a simple way of organizing people. So I want you to kind of boast about it the way you did the millions of dollars and said what you did with the pharmaceutical companies. What leadership can you point to that you've been able to rally anybody around anything that is of service that you did not pay anybody to do? I think that's important for the next president of the United States.
Sure. So I've always been drawn to healthcare. That's why I ended up founding companies in that space. When I was in high school, part of what drew me into it was that I was a volunteer at a local hospital. I actually became the leader of that group of volunteers that actually discharged women who had recently given birth. That was it. Nothing big to it.
Did you do anything we can point to stand out?
But I want to say something about that, because I say that in the book. If I'm being really honest, why did I do that in high school? A part of the motivation, I'll be just brutally honest with you, was that's actually what allows you to get into a good college when you graduate. Is you want to check the box of community service.
So it was about you.
So there was an element. So there's that, and I'm admitting that in a way that very.
And see how she's trying to frame this? It was about you. It was about self. I love the way that she constantly brings up, I'm a veteran. I served this country. I'm a veteran. Where's your service? She constantly brings that up to Vivek Ramaswamy. I died. I sacrificed my life for this country. I was willing to die for this country. But if we just being honest, every form of selflessness actually does benefit you in some sort of way. And I'd be hard pressed to believe that her signing up for the military was 100% to do with serving this country. Her sole purpose for signing up to the military was for being ready to die for this country. It wasn't about none of the benefits. It wasn't about none of the pay. It wasn't about how they take care of you after you're out of the military. It wasn't about none of that. It was all about serving this country. I don't believe that for a second. So even her acts of service that she wants to boast about so much, they benefited her. She benefited from her acts of service, like as everyone does.
Very few other people do, but I got to be honest about it. That was a big part of why I did it.
Yeah, it was about self, and I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to give it back to the guys. I'm going to be honest about it with you.
Yep.
Leadership is not about self.
I agree with you on that.
What I just heard is that everything is about you. And to be honest with you, this is just a PR campaign, sir. To be honest with you, and I think you're trying to go further to the right because you want the Republicans to accept you as a man of color. And I think the only way you think you can do that is to be so extreme.
I appreciate your opinion
with your positions, and I think you need to do a little bit more work in service. I'll give it back to you guys.
Let me ask, because she did ask me a question, and then you guys said you wanted to hear a response, but I think I heard an expression of opinion. So I want to make sure you're all done before I respond to it.
No, just wanting to say that even then, I would still want you to point out, even at the hospital, something that you did that made you stand out on when actually taking a leadership role. But you already answered it. You said you did it.
So the hospital example wasn't good enough. He already said that he became the leader of those group of volunteers. Give me an example. What more do you want to hear from? The man went and started a company. Companies employ people. That is service. That is giving back. I don't get this lady, man. Where did they find this lady from? I've never seen this lady in my life. And she's saying that Vivek Ramaswamy hasn't done enough. He's just been sitting around apparently for 20 years.
it because it was a motivation to get in college.
Exactly.
Which means it was
I'm being
about
very
you.
honest about that. But
everything has been about you. So as a veteran,
let me tell you something. I appreciate
it's very hard for me to follow leaders that make everything about them. So you might want to work on that because it's a lot of veterans and Republicans. So you might want to work on that talking point and maybe do some volunteering while you're on the campaign trail. I'm going to give it back to Charlamagne and Envy.
Yeah. I want to be respectful. Want to make sure you got everything you wanted to on the table before I respond to that.
If this was just us, it would be a lot more.
You guys tell me. I'm the guest on your show. You tell me when I'm good to speak.
Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead.
You sure?
Mm-hmm.
You sure about that? If we're good.
Yeah, we're sure.
So I think there's a different worldview that we have. And I think the worldview is how one actually makes contributions in a country. I do not believe that there's a separate category of just if you're serving the country and then if you're acting in self-interest, that's somehow sinful or wrong. I reject that vision. To the contrary, I think capitalism is the best system known to man to lift people up from poverty. I deeply respect and I thank you for your service to this country. I'm grateful for it. I haven't served the country in the way that you have. But I think that the way you get ahead in capitalism, how did I develop a multi-billion-dollar biotech company? It was by developing medicines that save people.
Absolutely. Give people competitive wages and give them an opportunity to earn and give them an opportunity to create their own business, their own thing, and employ people themselves. Capitalism 100% is the way.
Lives.
A lot of people say capitalism causes poverty.
Yeah, I disagree with that.
Okay.
I disagree with that. I think that capitalism demands that you provide something to someone that helps them more than you're actually charging them for it. That's the only way.
That's
the
a
tried
business
and true
model,
way
sir. That's
it
not
is a business
service.
model. It's not. I'm not
That's
saying
not
it's
service.
I'm saying it's having an impact on a society.
An elected official is service. That's the disconnect.
That's right. So
that you're
now,
missing that they didn't
I'm
teach you.
moving on to there are phases of our lives where we do different things.
Well, you're moving straight all the way up to President of the United States.
You know, I don't view it as a hierarchy. I don't view it as a hierarchy. I don't believe in hierarchy.
I thought she was done talking.
The hierarchy is the way the bureaucracy works. I don't believe in so we have a difference in opinion.
You also don't believe in service, and that's where we're having a disconnect.
Well, I disagree with you on that. I just disagree with you on that.
Yo, get this lady out of here. She never needs to lead an interview ever again. And 10 minutes 44 seconds, you all saw it. They didn't bring him there in good faith. They didn't bring him there to really pick his brain, to really ask good questions. They were there just to grill him. He was there to get grilled. He was set up. That was a grilling. That's what that was. And he handled it absolutely 100% amazing. Vivek Ramaswamy did his thing in that interview, and he spoke very well. He spoke very clear and represented all his points well. Again, like I said, this is reminiscent of the Andrew Tate interview with BBC. When Vivek Ramaswamy left this interview and with the footage all over the internet, most people aren't looking at this saying he did a bad job. Most people are looking at the interviewers, the Breakfast Club, and saying that they're bad faith and they're the ones who did a bad job. And this woman, absolutely ridiculous. Nobody really knew her before this, and nobody cares about her after this because she's terrible at interviewing. She's terrible at the job that they employed her to do that day. But that's all I got for you guys. Please, please, please let me know what you thought about this in the comments down below. And until next time, you guys, I'm out of here. Peace.